Good evening, friends. My name is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers magazine, and I'm here today with an exciting panel discussion on a topic, Cloud Avatar. I have an esteemed set of panelists with me today, and I will ask now to each of them to briefly introduce themselves. Can I start with Venkat for your introduction?
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Venkata Subramanian. I am from City Union Bank. I'm DGM IT, handling the entire IT portfolio, including the infrastructure and the business applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat.
Hi, my name is Krishna Rajaraman. People also call me Kicha. I'm the CTO for Intellect Design Arena Limited, banking and financial services solution technology provider. So I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, cutting across various domains, cutting across corporate, consumer banking, and insurance.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna.
Good afternoon to everyone. So I'm very privileged to be in this panel today. I have two roles here in this NBFC called Effective Finance Limited, Coimbatore. The strategic side, my role is Vice President, Enterprise Fight Solutions. The IT side, I also wear the cap of CIO. I'm in this company for the past 13 plus years.
Thank you, Dr. Ravindran. Welcome to this program.
Hi, I am Abhishek Das. I represent Tata Communications, and I have 20 plus years experience in technology consulting and sales and managing business, enabling customers in their digital journey. And it's almost 16 to 17 years that I've been part of Tata Communication in different roles and capacities. So pleased to be part of the panel and discussion today.
Thank you, Abhishek. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good afternoon. Honored to be here in this panel. My name is Amit Purohit. I work with Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC, the mutual fund business, looking after their digital business as PNL and a lot of cloud that we use. So I think best to be part of this panel and learn a lot from everyone and share some thoughts around cloud and overall digitalization, which is happening across the board. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Amit.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. I am Dr. N. Rajendran. I have 20 plus year experience of banking, payments, fintechs, and market infrastructures. Currently, I am with the Multi-Commodity Exchange of India Limited, and my role is Chief Digital Officer. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rajendran, and welcome. So friends, let's jump in. Let me start with a very people-oriented question, because technology is something that's ongoing, but cloud is something that there have been reservations about adopting cloud, whether at that individual level, at an organization level. So obviously, someone has to take a bold step when there is a resistance to go ahead. So as technology leaders, as business leaders, what kind of bold steps have you taken in the recent past?
So that is a very interesting question, Manoj. See, typically, all CIOs earlier, they were doing just the job of automating our environment. I'm talking about maybe some 5-6 years back and all. That was a different avatar altogether. But now the scenario got changed now. I think now we are moving towards overall digital transformation. I think now earlier we were only satisfying the internal stakeholders, pretty large. I think most of our IT friends can accept. But now, like again, Manoj indicated, I think we have external stakeholders. Thing is very high. Like now, you take customer centricity is the key, and the regulatory part another thing, and security. So it's all into account. Obviously, we are taking a new avatar, to satisfy all the external stakeholders in a very bold way. I think we have to move to a lot of technology pieces now, which are needed to get this accomplished, the overall digital transformation.
So to put it in one sentence, you're saying from a technology avatar, you're becoming a transformation avatar.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a
Any other perspective? Yes, Amit.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Dr. Ravindran. I think what cloud has done is provided enormous amount of flexibility, great amount of exploring the newer technologies with just a click of this thing. So my sense is it kind of provides you a lot of additional hand and feet in terms of experiment and try out new things. If it doesn't work, then you just can at a call. I mean, it is easier, but said but difficult to do. So, but I think a lot of things have moved on the cloud way, and I think I see no going back to the earlier avatar. I see a lot of applications moving forward, which are in your own premises, will also move to the cloud. Just one little word of this thing. One has to be a little practical, like which application is absolutely requiring to be in-house or on-prem. I think that is something which should be known to every CTO and every CDO. Once that is known, I think rest of the things can very easily quickly move on to cloud. I don't think so that cloud is any more inexpensive or this thing. I think and experts would kind of add to the whole thing. It has become at par. So I think cost is, I mean, in a way, no more an element. I think the flexibility and the agility which it provides, I think, kind of cuts across the board, and maybe gives a lot of agile and a lot of leeways for practitioners to move and do a lot of things in a very quicker way, which is what all the CIOs are looking forward to these days.
So in a sense, from a low-cost tool, it has become a powerful tool.
Yes, low cost is no more. I mean, it is, yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Any third observation about?
Just I wanted to little maybe look into this the demand perspective. I just wanted to see what pushes now to moving towards the cloud. If you see the one element is this COVID. Okay. The pandemic, after this pandemic started, and there are a lot of workforces, and the demand is in terms of whether it is a desktop or whether it is a computing servers or computing resources, whether it is the private or cloud, irrespective of any type of the cloud, the demand has forced CIOs to differently think and trying to provide an infrastructure to the workforce and to the enterprises. When you see the workforce, so even the pandemic time, even no transport, nothing, and they wanted to provide a connectivity, enable the workforce to start work remotely, even not to reaching to their own offices. So simply a connectivity is sufficient for them. They start using their own personal devices. It could be a mobile, it could be any gadgets, anything, whatever thing. So that one demand is highly, and they gone into the different way of one of the things, and in terms of virtual desktop kind of things, it's a huge demand too, because the two things the enterprise or the SAO or CISO look into the things while we're giving access to the any workforce, lot of things they need to take care. We'll discuss later on what other things need to be taken care. So then one is just easy to access. Okay, give it. That is one way it pushed the pandemic. One of the reason to pushing the cloud adoption in heavily, and demand is increased. That is one. And the second thing is overall digital adoption also started exponentially now in across the segment, not only the fintech payment or any other specific segment. It started across all the things. Then where the programmings, the developments also started as agile methods. Most of them now moved away from the waterfall to or the agile methods. Yeah. Say when you're doing agile methods, and they do optimize all the compute memory and everything. So dynamic demand and all things are kept in mind. That is one thing. Second thing is the distributed computing also started. So we wanted to do a local computing, local execution, and trying to push it into the cloud. And this is a combination of the lot of method that created even every system is itself is also going to be a teeny cloud kind of thing, a small virtual environment kind of thing. So that way, the demand on the across the industry is pushed to the CIO to look into the different way to adoption of the cloud. It could be, we can call it as say a hybrid adoption kind of things. So connecting together a large cloud with the small virtual machines. It could be earlier days, it used to call the various sensor kind of things, self OS are having. Now it is the little bigger systems are coming and executing the self-executing. Some of the process no need to go to the cloud also. That also can be locally executed and outcome can be put into the cloud. So something kind of the hybrid models has been demanded and this forced for an adoptions.
Any one more perspective? Yes, Krishna.
Okay. So see, one of the things that I wanted to add was a perspective around what the pandemic has ended up creating, right? On one side, it says that markets are slowing down, etc. But on the other side, it's also rewarding people who are actually taking those bold calls and steps to actually do things or take on the challenge that the market is throwing to them. So some of the decision making, the way things work, all of that also, if we are lethargic or we have a sense of resignation or being indifferent to that, the markets are actually clearly identifying, responding to it, and they are pulling out their ability to back, or they're not pulling out the backing for those particular organizations. So it is important that the way that we see is that moment, just because the pandemic has happened, and it also unfurled a lot of needs for really going digital to the last dot, the last mile connectivity became important. It was no longer a case that I'm there 70% or 80%. I still have to reach there literally 100% because of all the conditions that the pandemic ended up creating. So that demanded a lot of investments from various sectors to get the customers, the end users to have that last mile connectivity. And which also means for any technology firms, it also became a mandate in effect for us to take those bold calls at a time where things could have not looked that rosy or whatever way that it may be it financial, be it, on how do we actually accommodate various plans that we put in place, all of that stuff. The entire thing, we had to literally be agile right at the business planning execution level. Okay, now not just at the operation level. That's something which I want to add.
True. Let's move ahead to the next question and let me go to the panelists who have not yet spoken. So that would be Venkat and Abhishek. My second question is this, with all this evolution and bold steps, how do you see the gap between business and technology narrowing? So Venkat and Abhishek, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, Manoj, definitely, the gap is narrowing actually. See, banks are, in a way forced to move, digitally, which, needs to be supported by adoption of cloud. Core banking was a great revolution in the banking a decade or a decade and a half before, where banks were really pushing for the core banking transformation. So that was achieved. But now with a lot of demand from the business, competition, and retention of customers, banks are expected to provide a lot more services beyond banking, beyond the general banking. We are forced to do that. And secondly, the expectation of the services are also going up, where banks need to meet the TAT. For example, if I'm applying for a loan, I expect a quicker result than I wait for a week or 10 days or 15 days. So something like this, the expectations are growing in the other side. So definitely banks need to adopt. For that, core banking alone is not enough for the banks. Definitely they need to go for partnership with fintechs, where you get a lot of ancillary services. Of course, there are many challenges in that. We need to evaluate. We need to how the data is protected, how it is archived, not retained in the system. So a lot of challenges, and also RBI gives us a lot of pressure and complaints in terms of complaints. So of course it is very challenging, but we need to sail through and then adapt to the cloud.
Wonderful. And Abhishek, do you have something to share on the gap between business and technology?
Well, of course.
And the role of cloud.
Yeah, surely, Manoj, and I really appreciate the insights from Mr. Venkat. Coming back to the serious perspective, I think, as Mr. Venkat said, customer is at the forefront. And while I personally believe through our interactions with various customers across BFSI vertical, I think one of the most advanced technology adoption and the sector which is more at the forefront of adopting technology has been the banking finance sector from the past itself. So it was always trying to play a catch up with respect to the advancement in technology. If you look at the adoption of the core banking, the automation, then of course the mobile banking, the net banking, and so on and so forth. So I would say that even for a traditional brick and mortar business of bank customers, the bits and bytes have always been a sort of a building block, from a business logic to the actual, the facilitation of services. IT has been playing a very, very significant role. And while the boundaries and the perimeters have stretched far and wide now, thanks to the advent of technology, thanks to the advent of cloud, you could look at distributed or a virtual ledger, blockchain technology. And I was quite intrigued by the example of a key-based tap, payment service that Mr. Venkat was talking about earlier. So I would say that as the boundaries are extending beyond, the horizon is kind of getting more wider, it's becoming more infinite. I think, kudos to the customers and the businesses that are now emerging, both in terms of the likes of fintechs as well, that are sort of propelling the growth, that are propelling a more wider and a coherent adoption of the technology in that space. And that is actually leading the way. And hence, therefore, while there will always be a gap, but the gap is not so visible right now, because the moment there is innovation in the technology, I think the BFSI segment is at the forefront of looking to adopt and and look forward to serving the customer in a much more engaging manner. Your earlier question about how bolder the decision is, I think earlier the decisions were more rested upon the facts, how much the deposits that the bank has, how much has been the past statistics, quarters and years. But now I think customers are looking at, and with the help of technology and the partner ecosystem, I think the customers are looking at advanced leap growth and having their risks, or rather their risks also at the forefront with respect to the technology, the resolution, the advantage that the technology brings, Manoj.
Okay, that's an interest. Thanks, Abhishek. So having covered that, let's go into a slightly different area. So how has been the experience in taking these bold decisions in terms of, still being compliant and certified and secure and satisfying the auditors and everyone else, managing all the risks? How has that been as an experience?
I think this is the very crucial decisions to whether go to a public cloud, even not only a public cloud, who is the service provider also need to be identified before you taking the decision. And or you wanted to go to the only private cloud. Okay. So the compliance is the key criteria, first decision making in the BFSI segment. All the regulators has the different compliance requirements. So not only the cloud strategy, but there is the even for a service provider strategy also, how you can do, and it is coming under kind of an outsourcing IT service kind of things. Okay, so need to look into the first compliance requirement, and that cannot be compromised for whatever reasons. Okay, whether it is a local data localization, or the what kind of the services available. Even we need to go into details about how this cloud availability also, because based on certain criteria, a CIO or CTO responsible for ensuring the compliance of availability of the services. So that is very important fact I would like to put forward. This is the one of the key decision maker in the cloud. And second factors which I wanted to touch it, the security. Definitely, the BFSI, the data is the most crucial element. To protecting the data is the big challenges, and because the financial data are always, fraudsters are trying to acquire this kind of data to use for a different ways. Okay, so then second thing is how the data in where whatever services we avail from cloud or anywhere else, how this data is protected. That's why the security aspect will play the major role in to taking and adopting any new cloud strategy, or the cloud just providing any services. The various aspects they need to consider and decide it how to go to the cloud.
Let's add to the flavor by, if anyone wants to share a personal organizational experience on how they tackled some of these major issues.
So Dr. Rajendran said, the security and compliance has always been a big paramount problem when it comes to the cloud adoption in the BFSI area, right? So in many cases, the banks have their established procedures and processes in place on handling security for the real gold inside, which is the data of their customers, the financial transactions, whatnot. They have those nice, well-established process and sequence in place, and with which they were governing the whole setup. But now, with the need for adopting to cloud and moving it there, some of those procedures and processes do not smoothly transcend to the cloud setup. Okay. There are a plethora of alternatives, plethora of options that comes up, each having its own nuances with respect to how much it would provide security and what are the aspects that it not cover. There's a different component which will come in and cover this aspect. So suddenly something that you were properly managing. For a better analogy, if I'm trying to secure my house, I ensure that I always put a gate in front, I put a security guard, I put a monitoring video, I have a couple of tumbler locks and whatnot, all of that stuff. Suddenly, all of that is like happening somewhere on the cloud, and I'm still supposed to manage the security. So the typical mechanisms that are followed becomes the vulnerable aspects, okay, where those cracks and those exposures get created. True.
Yes, Venkat, can you give some more practical issues, examples?
The one best example will be the data localization, which Krishna was talking about. It's a real nightmare for banks to give a certificate once in 6 months to RBI, which should be signed by the MD and CEO. So every 6 months, we need to audit the cloud provider, and we need to ensure that the data is locally available, the DR is available locally, and what are the security measures have been adapted. So all these have to be validated, and we need to convince MD to sign, because he is signing the certificate at final, right? So yes, MD and CEO has to sign the certificate that all the data are residing locally. So this is something very challenging for us. Every 6 months, come March or September, we'll be running around to get the certificate from the vendors. So it's a pain for the banks, but of course there are a lot of other benefits. But still, to comply with this regulation is a challenge for the banks, in my view. And the next one about the security aspects. Recently, we implemented one digital lending solution. So all the demo, everything was fine. We started implementing. When we did the detailed design phase, we found that there is some amount of manual intervention in between by the service provider. So we were thinking that everything was digital and a straight through process, because entire customer sensitive data is available with him for the process. So that is something which we came across. I don't know how many banks got to know this later or even before that. This is something a point which was a learning for us, to more, look into deeply before we adapt to the cloud.
Abhishek, how would you respond to this certificate, data localization certificate? Is there some tools or technologies or methodologies, or what does Tata Communications do to help its customers?
Surely, Manoj, I think that's a fair challenge and has always been a point of discussion, with our customers in the industry. So the fundamental aspect that today there is a stringent regulation. One is the RBI regulation. There is, of course, the compliance framework which keeps coming in, and as the amount of data and the volume increases, the fundamental questions that comes to the customer's mind is around the data protection, the data residency, the way you want to handle the data in terms of, the resiliency and all that, as some of our customers mentioned about accessing data on the cloud. While it gives you the flexibility, however, when you look at applications, the fundamental thing with which we lead is that we look to our customers by recommending them to choose a partner as the right platform which is compliant to the government regulation. For example, if you talk about Tata Communication ISO Finance Cloud, ISO Fin Cloud platform that we have for our banking finance customer, it is compliant to the RBI as well as the IRDA regulatory framework. There is a sort of a certification by virtue of the certain SOC 1 Type 2 and so on and so forth, the ISO 27000s and around the process itself. So those are some of the things that the value that we sort of bring onto the table, notwithstanding the fact that it's very secured by not just the virtue of the identity access or the perimeter security, but what we are also working with the customers and the regulator is very strongly by virtue of integrating these through the operation center, managing the security, cybersecurity operation and response center that we have. And that actually sort of convolutes and offers an umbrella around the infrastructure service or the platform service that we offer as a part of the ISO Fin Cloud.
Let me ask Amit and Dr. Ravindran, to what extent do you find vendors being proactive in these aspects, not just cloud, but in general? So is it becoming more and more important for a technology partner or a technology vendor to proactively give you all these kind of compliances, or you can manage in-house with your talent and your...
This is a very interesting question, actually. But I was mentioning, in the beginning, the customer centricity is a key, and again, regulatory part also. But in my view, I think vendors are not that proactive. So it is from our end, I think, the IT team or the strategic team to coordinate and get it done using the vendors in a proactive manner. With respect to maybe compliance part, see, RBI regulates something, expects something, etc. I'll tell you one example. I think since my fellow panelists also, they were talking about different cloud data sources are there. And we have on-prem also and on cloud also, actually. And RBI, I think we have to provide the data, I think in a frequent manner in XBRL format, etc., etc. But you may not get that from the vendor. So what we have to work it out, what we have done is actually, see, we formed a data lake concept, actually. A data lake concept, again, proudly over cloud. So we have done, again, proactively, what are all the needed data, it's all will be dynamically compiled over there. And while we submit the data to RBI at the time of audit or the quarterly report submission, etc., I think with minimal time, I think the report can be generated and uploaded. But this sort of thing, definitely we can't expect from vendors. I think this is a core responsibility of the CIO or the strategic team, to work on this.
But was there any other application for the data lake, or it was primarily geared towards RBI or whatever reporting?
No, it's actually, your question is again very valid. It is not only for RB part, you take data analytics. See, data analytics for the management to serve all the customer segment, etc. and all. So that is very needed. So if you have a compiled information, of course, thanks to APIs and other things and all. So cloud enablement, that is not, in fact, is impediment on us actually. Thanks to API parts available over there, we can just write routine APIs to get the data dynamically put in over there. The data lake will serve not only for the regulatory part. Regulatory, I can say secondary. The primary part is now for the analytics, to provide the valuable insights to the stakeholders to take respective decisions.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Amit, what is your experience? What is your take on?
So my experience is little different. As Dr. Ravindran mentioned, I think the core responsibility is with the CIOs and the CDOs. But I mean, if the selection of the partner is with the checklist, saying that you are coming in with 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 things, and I think what Abhishek was also mentioning about the the parameters that is provided as pre-stacked parameters, which it becomes easier for the decision maker to go ahead and decide the vendor and know what you are not getting. See, generally what happens is people focus on what you are getting as part of the full stack, but many a times those fine prints you miss. And then what Krishnan was saying, that people kind of run here and there to with the newer set of regulation, with the data localization and all, it kind of adds to the overall for want of better words, misery to the tech practitioners. But I think people, I mean, if you see, a lot of new fintech guys also are coming up with very, very mature solutions. So I think the whole point is most of us are kind of part of legacy ecosystem, and we are trying to make the best out of both the worlds. So I think if we lean towards some of the digitally born fintechs, you will find a lot of solution, a lot of inspiration to look forward to. Like someone was in the beginning mentioning about the analytics which customers want onto their spends, right? Or look at the beautiful example of what PhonePe and Google Pay has done with the UPI, right? So many transactions. So I mean, both of them put together has got a market share of 80% plus. And I think most of their solutions will be obviously on cloud. They are, I think, setting a great example, for all of us, saying that how things can be, kind of forecasted and managed. So fortunately, a lot of proactive, entities are coming up. So I'm going forward, the regulations and the audits and the compliance aspects also will be even more stricter. But I see technology helping us all the way.
Interesting. Good to get both the perspective and both the experiences actually. But it raises this question for Abhishek then. Is supporting banks in all their compliance and security aspects, that in your financial cloud that you have, ISO financial cloud, are these services dynamic or more static? I'm wondering whether you get the question, if I'm able to convey it.
Yeah, I did.
So can you expand on that?
Okay, sure. So I think the service provider, so as the threshold for the technology is increasing, and we were talking to our customers across the customers across the verticals and business segments, that the pandemic has actually broadened the horizon, and there is no more perimeter defined by the physical environment in your office. The perimeter has become infinite right now, right? So to speak, you're operating. I heard one of our customers talk about saying that Mr. Venkat spoke about that the service provider's person resource will be accessing the infrastructure of the solution from where he's working today. So those are some of the shifts. Those are some of the transitions this pandemic and the current way of doing business has enabled us, and therefore it is very much important to be on the ever evolving forefront as a service provider. So basically, as a service provider, unless telecommunication is 2 steps ahead of where the customers are, our ability to recommend and work with our customers so that they adopt the best of the best possible solutions, tools, technology, and processes. We will not be able to serve the customers and give them the sort of the user experience, their partner enablement, and the end customer experience, will not be something which will enable the business to grow. So therefore, for Tata Communication, if you look at the ISO FinCloud that we have launched some time back, in fact, we got our first customer as well. There's quite a varying degree of service that is emerging from this. First and foremost, the ISO FinCloud is compliant to the RBI and IRDA framework. It follows that compliance guideline. It is transparent because many a times my esteemed customers and partners have asked that, is it possible to audit the platform that you're giving? Because many a times, it is not possible for service providers to open up and share transparently, the end customer assets, and auditors are prohibited from auditing. But I think I would like to call it out that, that's one of the advantages that we bring as a part of our solution and service. And more importantly, by virtue of the the tools and technology which gets integrated into the platform, right? For example, you look at identity as a service. You're talking about, your SIM as a service, which is your security incident event management solution, your security operations and automation, I would say, capability for orchestration, and various other services, be it, the application security led by that. So all these services are something which are rendered as a service.
So friends, at 4:02, let's try to summarize and wind up. Maybe everyone wants to give a half-minute feedback.
I see nobody is Nostradamus here, so I think I think everyone intuitively and obviously by way of practicing this on a daily basis can kind of vouch for and can tell very confidently that cloud would in any way would kind of catapult and will be even more in terms of its traction. Only thing is maybe little more inward looking is something that everyone will have to do in terms of what goes to cloud and what remains on-prem, because there will be many utilities which you would want to keep on-prem for various reasons. So I think that kind of maturity has started dawning into all of the organizations, saying what is the boundary that I will create for on-prem. Rest all will kind of try to move into cloud. With the new set of regulation for banks, I think the bankers can tell more in terms of data localization and some amount of turbulence over there, but I think it should settle over a period of time. Yeah.
Okay, Amit, thank you. Abhishek, your half-minute vision.
So I think cloud is here and there and here to stay. We have already seen the customer transition their peripheral workloads, their DevOps. The customers are talking about their net banking website through the partner engagement model to be transitioned onto the cloud, and we've seen customer transition to cloud. I think what I see in the coming year will be more wider adoption, the customers' risk appetite increasing there, and more importantly, with the service provider, there will be a much more cohesive engagement with the ISVs who are sort of bundling and packaging the applications together, right, for the customer and customers in the banking space. So I feel that there will be a lot more integration and capability through the enablement of API gateways and thereon to offer services like bank in a box or a banking as a service and so on by banking cloud community. So since we are part of that, so I think that's what I see happening in the coming year.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, see, cloud is going to be the ultimate platform. There is no doubt on that. Like I already mentioned, see, we are not adopting cloud in the recent past. In fact, we were with the cloud, most of the companies, in fact, for the past 7-8 years, actually, more than that period. And no new hardware, and think all software or SaaS-enabled cloud, everything that's all there. But that's why we could be able to face the COVID pandemic not very seriously, actually. We were really comfortable, the work from home culture, availability, 24/7, etc. and all. But like Abhishek mentioned, different vendors, they provide different facilities. And it is up to the CIO or CTO or whoever it may be, to decide the right architecture. In fact, Abhishek also touched about now hybrid. I think still, I think we have certain stuff here in on-prem, but we may be gradually moving it around. So the 2022 will be the digital transformation year for CIOs, and definitely cloud is going to be one of the enabler on that. I think that's my.
Thank you. Krishna, would you like to give your vision for 2022?
Okay, 2022, like how Mr. Amit and Dr. Rajendran called out, Dr. Ravindran called out, I think it is going to be a primary big space on hybrid, okay, where with applications being present both on-prem as well as cloud and in transition, okay, and in many cases, probably a good level of cross interaction between the applications. So many times we assume that a product or a particular service and move to the cloud, it's probably fully all encompassed sitting in the cloud, but that actually doesn't happen to be the case. It sits within an ecosystem. It's just that one of the ecosystem components is now running in cloud. So the level of interaction that happens with other ecosystems enabled through APIs, enabled through the different kinds of data exchanges that happens, securing them, and they all bring up a newer kind of challenges, newer kind of solutions, newer kind of designs that I believe will be a beautiful challenge that would be crossed as we keep moving ahead. Because the way that we see it, the primary focus spend happening on security and other areas around data and overall security of the entire setup, that is very much going to continue or probably even grow more higher with regulations further backing it. And the whole thing added to the mix of this hybrid cloud setup is actually going to give a lot of interesting areas of improvements, different kinds of challenges, something that we may not have thought through earlier, that we'll have to take on and solve as we keep moving ahead. So it would be this, I think it's in a stage where it is cutting over to that kind of a stage, is what I believe.
Dr. Rajendran, your prognosis for 2022?
I totally agree with the all the panelists. The adoption is definitely will be the increasing in the 2022, and the model for a BFSI sector, mostly it will be following the hybrid model, and because for the small enterprises, it will be an assetless organization, could be a small kind of things, even including the workforce also can be on cloud, just using their own device. They can just connect to the system. They can become the no need to have any laptop or anything bought by an enterprise. Even they can bring own laptops and just start connecting through the cloud-based the VDIs and everything. That could be a different model end-to-end completely for a certain kind of the organization. But BFSI, I see it is going to be continuously a hybrid one. And this data privacy bills also going to come. And then that will definitely enforce the organization to build a strategy how to retain the data and keep only data with them and trying to do the process in somewhere else in the like a cloud kind of thing. So kind of the approaches definitely will be there. So I think the adoption is going to increase.
Okay,
that's what my view.
Fantastic. And Venkat.
So with the digital requirements and lot many innovation that is required by banks, definitely cloud solutions are rather banks are slowly moving or forced to move towards cloud. So in fact, it is not only for the business applications. In fact, even for HR related, your learning management, everything is slowly moving towards cloud. In fact, we are moving slowly towards cloud. All our learning platform is under cloud now, and we are moving our HR also into cloud now. So definitely, in spite of all the challenges, compliance requirements, security, whatever it is. But one thing I would like to share here is not all your fintechs comes with a ready-made solution for you. So it is on the part of the IT team to evaluate carefully and see which is suitable for you. Because they come up in general. They work with a lot of variety of institutions, including banks, insurance, and many other industries they work. So it is the onus is on the bank or the end user to see and evaluate whether it's really suitable for you and you comply with all your requirements. So and in fact we have based on our experience, we have prepared a detailed questionnaire. We share with the fintechs first whether we can discuss with them at first. So that is what we have done.
Thank you so much. Thank you for a very lovely interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Manoj.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thanks everyone for the
Delighted
nice.
to discuss with all of you. Thank you so
Sure.
much.